Hey, food lovers! Ever wondered why you can't sleep after a late night snack? It's like trying to sleep through a service in my restaurant during the dinner rush. Absolute madness! Well, you can blame your rumbling gut and those delicious yet devilish late night snacks. Today, we're diving into the top 10 foods that keep you awake at night. Let's get started. Let's start with the obvious, shall we? Coffee, you beautiful, aromatic, life-giving nectar. You're also a right bastard when it comes to bedtime. That's because coffee's loaded with caffeine, a stimulant that sends your nervous system into overdrive. Think of caffeine as that one chef who just can't switch off, buzzing around the kitchen, barking orders even when the service is long over. It blocks a chemical called adenosine, which is responsible for making you feel sleepy. So, instead of winding down, your brain's stuck on high alert. Now, I'm not saying you need to ditch coffee altogether. A cup or two in the morning is fine. But when it comes to the evening, lay off the caffeine, you hear me? Treat it like a bad sous chef. Keep it out of your late night service. Caffeine can stay in your system for up to 6 hours. So if you're having an espresso at 6 p.m., don't come crying to me when you're still staring at the ceiling at midnight. Instead, opt for a calming herbal tea, a warm glass of milk, or even just plain water. Trust me, your sleep-deprived self will thank you in the morning. Now I know what you're thinking. Chef Ramsay, you're telling me I have to give up chocolate? What kind of cruel joke is this? Listen, I love a good piece of chocolate as much as the next person, but when it comes to dark chocolate, especially close to bedtime, it's a recipe for disaster. Dark chocolate, my friends, is another caffeine culprit. Not as much as coffee, mind you, but enough to keep you up at night if you're sensitive to it. And as if that wasn't bad enough, it also contains a little something called theobromine. Theobromine is another stimulant, similar to caffeine, that can give you a boost of energy when you least need it, like when you're trying to drift off to sleep. Now, I'm not saying you need to banish all chocolate from your life. A small square of dark chocolate after dinner, a few hours before bed, is probably fine for most people. But if you're prone to sleeplessness, it's best to avoid it altogether in the evening. Indulge in your chocolate cravings earlier in the day, and save the late-night snacking for something a little more sleep-friendly. Ice cream, that sweet, cold, creamy indulgence. It's the perfect treat on a hot day, a comforting companion after a tough breakup, and a surefire way to sabotage your sleep. You see, ice cream is essentially a sugar bomb disguised as a dessert. And while that sugar rush might feel fantastic at first, it inevitably leads to a nasty sugar crash, leaving you feeling sluggish, irritable, and wide awake when you should be counting sheep. This rapid fluctuation in blood sugar levels disrupts your sleep cycle, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep throughout the night. Now, I'm not saying you can never enjoy a scoop of ice cream again, but if you're struggling with sleep, it's best to limit your intake and avoid it altogether in the hours before bed. Instead, opt for a healthier, sleep-promoting dessert like a small bowl of berries or a handful of nuts. Remember, a good night's sleep is far more satisfying than a sugar-induced headache and a night of tossing and turning. Listen up, spice lovers. I admire your tolerance for heat, but when it comes to bedtime, those fiery foods you love so much, they're playing with fire, literally. Spicy foods, while delicious and often good for you, can wreak havoc on your sleep, especially if you're not careful. The culprit here is capsaicin, the compound that gives chili peppers their signature heat. Capsaicin is a known irritant that can trigger heartburn, indigestion, and acid reflux. All things that scream "stay awake all night" louder than me during a service meltdown. Imagine this. You're lying in bed trying to drift off, when suddenly a burning sensation erupts in your chest. Not exactly conducive to a restful night, is it? Now, I'm not saying you need to give up spicy food altogether, but if you're prone to heartburn or indigestion, it's best to avoid spicy foods in the hours before bed. And if you do indulge, keep it moderate and have some antacids on hand, just in case. Alcohol. That tempting glass of wine after a long day, that cold beer with friends, that nightcap to help you relax. It might seem like alcohol and sleep go together like peanut butter and jelly, but let me tell you, that's a recipe for disaster. Alcohol might lull you into a false sense of drowsiness at first, but don't be fooled. It disrupts your sleep cycle, big time. It might help you fall asleep faster, but it prevents you from reaching those deep, restful stages of sleep your body needs to repair and recharge. So, what's the verdict? While a glass or two earlier in the evening might not hurt, avoid alcohol close to bedtime if you want a decent night's sleep. Trust me, your body and mind will thank you for it. Now let's talk about red meat, shall we? A good steak, cooked to perfection, is a thing of beauty, but it's also a sleep saboteur in disguise. Red meat is packed with protein, which is essential for building and repairing tissues, but it's also a bit of a nightmare for your sleep cycle when consumed close to bedtime. Here's why. Protein takes a long time to digest, and that digestive process can interfere with your sleep. While you're trying to drift off, your body's working overtime to break down that steak, keeping your digestive system humming when it should be winding down for the night. Moreover, red meat is also high in tyrosine, an amino acid that your body converts into alertness-boosting neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. So, what's the solution? Enjoy your red meat earlier in the day, giving your body ample time to digest it before you hit the hay. And if you're craving protein close to bedtime, opt for lighter, more easily digestible sources like fish, poultry, or plant-based options. Energy drinks. Just the name should tell you they're public enemy number one when it comes to a good night's sleep. They're like that annoyingly energetic line cook who's always bouncing off the walls, even after a double shift. These neon-colored concoctions are basically liquid caffeine bombs, often loaded with sugar, guarana, another source of caffeine, taurine, and other stimulants designed to keep you buzzing like a fly in a bottle. The problem is, while that initial surge of energy might feel great when you're facing a deadline or a long drive, it comes at a price: your sleep. Those stimulants wreak havoc on your sleep-wake cycle, making it harder to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. And let's not forget the sugar crash that often follows the energy drink high. It's a recipe for disaster, leaving you feeling even more drained and sleep-deprived than before you took that first sip. Choose water, herbal tea, or even a piece of fruit instead. Your body will thank you for it in the long run. Now let's talk about everyone's guilty pleasure fatty foods. From juicy burgers and crispy fries to cheesy pizzas and creamy pasta dishes, these culinary delights can be downright irresistible. But while they might satisfy your taste buds, they're not doing your sleep any favors. In fact, fatty foods are notorious for causing indigestion and disrupting sleep, leaving you feeling bloated, uncomfortable, and wide awake when you should be drifting off to dreamland. Fat takes longer to digest than protein or carbohydrates, which means your digestive system is hard at work breaking it down while you're trying to sleep. This can lead to indigestion, heartburn, acid reflux, and other digestive discomforts that can make it nearly impossible to get a good night's rest. Enjoy those indulgent treats in moderation, and earlier in the day, giving your body ample time to digest them before you hit the sack. And if you're craving something savory in the evening, opt for lighter, more easily digestible options like a small bowl of soup, a salad with grilled chicken or fish, or a piece of whole wheat toast with avocado. Soda, that fizzy, sugary beverage that seems to be everywhere these days. It's tempting, I know, but when it comes to your sleep, soda is about as welcome as a fly in my kitchen. Like its partner in crime, energy drinks, soda is a double whammy of sleep disruption thanks to its high sugar content and often hidden caffeine levels. It's like a 1-2 punch to your sleep-wake cycle, leaving you groggy, irritable, and craving more sugar the next day. Soda is loaded with sugar, and as we discussed earlier, sugar is a recipe for a blood sugar roller coaster, spiking your levels, then sending them crashing down, leaving you feeling wired and then utterly exhausted. And then there's the caffeine. While not all sodas contain caffeine, many popular varieties do, especially colas and other dark sodas. So what's the verdict? Ditch the soda, folks. It's doing your sleep no favors and wreaking havoc on your health in the process. Choose water, herbal tea, or even a sparkling water with a splash of fruit juice instead. Your body and your sleep schedule will thank you for it. Now let's talk about cheese, shall we? Specifically, aged cheese. While I'm all for a good cheese board earlier in the day, when it comes to bedtime, aged cheese is about as welcome as a burnt pan in my kitchen. You see, aged cheeses like cheddar, Swiss, and Parmesan contain an amino acid called tyramine. Tyramine can trigger the release of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that increases alertness and can make it difficult to fall asleep. It's not a problem for everyone, but if you're sensitive to tyramine, even a small amount can leave you feeling wired and wide awake when you should be counting sheep. Enjoy your aged cheese in moderation and earlier in the day, giving your body ample time to process the tyramine before you hit the hay. And if you're craving cheese before bed, Opt for milder, lower-tier amine varieties like mozzarella, ricotta, or cottage cheese. So there you have it, folks. If you want a good night's sleep, try to avoid these foods before bed. Remember, a good night's sleep is crucial for your physical and mental health. Just be mindful of when you eat them and how they might affect your sleep. Sweet dreams and happy eating. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more foodie tips.